Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April Numerology Energy Forecast. I don't know about you, but I feel like I just did March like yesterday. And I think it's going to be interesting because I kind of feel like March was the slowest, fastest month ever. So I don't know. Let me know where you're at with that. As you guys are coming in, comment, say hi, let me know you're here. I'm just going to pull up the chat here so I can see your comments. And let's do this. Yay, we're live. Okay. Yes, 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 you guys are here. Amazing. Okay, let's dive in. So interesting. April was March was the month that was all about our intuition. And it was also about connection, friendships, relationships, and all of that dynamic of partnership. So if you had stuff coming up around the people in your life, your partnerships, all that kind of thing, like you were on track. That's where you needed to be. And it's such a tricky thing because when we're going through hardship, like we don't want to be there. We don't want the hardship. But understand that a lot of what's happening right now is a cleansing process and a detoxing process. And if we can honor it and accept it and allow it and surrender to it rather than making it wrong or fighting against it, it tends to be a little bit more sort of manageable. Yay. Hello, everyone. And I think the clarity that came through is going to be so helpful, even if you don't feel clear yet. Yeah, March started great, but then I got a full moon lunar eclipse knockdown. I keep hearing this, and I myself felt it. I feel like in some ways I'm still kind of in the midst of it. There's just been a lot of challenges around relationships and things like that coming up. And tell me if I'm not alone in this, but for me, it definitely, I saw patterns in current relationships that were actually rooted in childhood patterns. And so for me, it was about using my connection with myself, my connection with source energy to go in and do some inner child work and some healing on that little girl inside of me, right? So if you felt that, just know you're not alone. That's part of the process sometimes. So going into April is going to be really interesting because April is typically, April is going to be a 3 energy month, and 3 is typically very fast paced. It's going to speed up in a lot of ways. It's an energy that wants to move very quickly. I always think of 3 as a fire energy. It expands anything it's applied to. So in 3 energy, whatever is going on, it will continue to grow and continue to amplify. And particularly in this month, this is going to be a strong sense around your self-expression. And what I really want us to take to heart in April is we are not biting our tongues anymore. We are not playing small anymore. We are not holding back anymore. You know, when you feel the like bubble up of something, and then you're like, ooh, bite my tongue, don't upset, don't rock the boat. I'm sure it's fine. Maybe I misunderstood, maybe I misperceived, and we kind of like turn it back on ourselves. We're not doing that in April, okay? I solemnly swear not to hold back my fullest self-expression. That is literally the mantra I'm hoping that you will take into the month. I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to be willing to be vulnerable. And one of my favorite lines in expressing and working with our self-expression, because we don't need to be right. We don't have to do it perfect. So one of my favorite lines around this is saying something like, the story I'm telling myself is, right? That's something I got from Brene Brown's work. The story I'm telling myself is, the narrative I'm picking up on is, right? And it allows us to like acknowledge it, to speak the truth of the feelings we have around it, but to not need to like be fully entangled and enmeshed in it, and to be open to the possibility that there's another storyline here, right? Because there always is. And this is what I say to myself often to kind of comfort myself. This was what I needed to do with that little girl in me in the past few weeks when I was going through some of the inner child stuff that was coming up, is I would need to say to myself, like, yeah, this is very real for you. And like, you're feeling the discomfort of this story. And, the story you're telling yourself is, in all those childhood wounds or all the struggles that I was going through. And, what else is available for you here? What else is possible for you here? Where is the medicine for you here? Where is the antidote for you here? And just being willing to like, not enmesh in something as like, that's the only way it is. And so I think when we're playing with this fullest self-expression, the concept of the story I'm telling myself is very powerful, whether it's to ourselves, right? Like having that conversation with ourselves or other people, right? Like if some triggers are coming up or some conversations are coming up that need to be had around your work or your partnerships or friendships in your life or miscommunications, right? Because a miscommunication happens and we go down the rabbit hole of like, they're thinking this, they're thinking that, and we don't actually know. We actually don't know. So, and this is where we give them and ourselves grace is the story I'm telling myself is. So let me know um, if you want to play with that line, like I'm planning on doing myself. Yeah. The story I'm telling myself is no matter what, my heart and mind are still lighter and more joyful than that of the people who are trying to cause me harm. So, so beautiful, Annie. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, absolutely. Hello, hello from Slovenia. Oh, I'm so happy you're here too. Hello, Miel. Hello, James. So good. Okay, so the other thing that I want to say about being willing to share your fullest self-expression and being willing to kind of like melt some of those tensions by naming them through this story, right? So the story I'm telling myself it melts some stuff. It causes you to not be entangled as tightly. Is one of the things that was shown to me very clearly is there are doors all around you. Okay, there are doors, there are portals, there are magical openings all around you. Some of them you can see, and some of them you cannot see. And the only reason you can't see them is the entanglement and the enmeshment that you're experiencing that blocks your vision, right? So what that means to me, and it's kind of similar languaging is like you can't, if you're not at the right frequency, you can't see it or you can't access it. But it gives us a bit more context because sometimes that can be like unnerving. Like, well, how do I change my frequency to see the thing I want to see? Right. And I see it a little differently, right? I see it as you know, when I'm enmeshed in these stories, it's putting filters and lenses over my eyes, which is why I cannot see certain things because they are not an energetic match to the storyline that I have bought into, the storyline that I'm telling myself. Thank you. Adrienne is saying that Byron Katie is the original person that talks about what's the story. I love Byron Katie. I love it so much. And that is a line that we can play with, a through line that we can play with in here, because another thing that Byron Katie talks about is who am I? What is my experience when I believe this story to be true? Right? So, what doors are open for me when I believe this story to be true? Like, I know there's an infinite number of doors available, but as long as I'm bought in to a certain narrative, it's going to narrow those doors. And it's just going to give me a couple of doors that fit that story and that fit that narrative. So if I can kind of like unwind that a little bit and like loosen the grip a little bit, it's like cleaning dirty glasses and opening up that field of vision. And now all of a sudden, I actually can see, oh, there's like 5 or 6 doors available to me, right? There's like 5 or 6 doors. And, as much as this storyline would have me play out this character, if I open myself up to other storylines, like what other characters are available here? What is the narrative that can play out? What is the like hero's journey that can play out with this bit of insight? Right. And so I think it's really powerful to play with it. But, denial tightens that lens. So like if I try to like force myself to not accept the truth of what I'm feeling, that does not open the doors. right? Which is why I think it's so important through the acceptance of the story I'm telling myself is, right? Because then it's acknowledging what you're feeling as very real and very legit and very true, but yet it loosens the grip. Can you guys feel that paradox of like surrendering to it loosens the grip? It's like the Chinese finger traps you played with as a kid. That same type of concept, right? I'm an elf in my other story, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. I fully see that, James. So good. All right. What else do we want to talk about when it comes to the energy of the three in April? So, these self expression lines that want to be coming out, there is going to be quite a bit of energy attached to these. Number one, you're going to recognize that you've had systems and structures and, um, you know, like a house of cards built on these storylines. And when you are willing to acknowledge that there's more options available to you, it's going to require looking at some of the ways you've built your life to kind of anchor that in. And so, what I mean by that is if I'm going to make myself a new storyline, what are the habits, the practices, the rituals that that version of me plays with? Like, what are the things I do? How do I dress? How is my morning routine? What do my relationships look like? How do I take care of my body? And starting to play with like, how do I approach my workday? How do I approach, you know, my playing with my soul gifts? What is that? And so looking at like the ways you've set up your life through habits. I like to think of them as rituals, but to me, it's no different. A habit, a ritual, a tradition, it's a thing that we do routinely. And I like to think of it as a ritual because to me, that adds an element of mindfulness to it, of like, whether it's like just literally getting up and brushing your teeth, that's a habit. But if you ritualize that, you come into it with intentionality, right? And so you can take your habits and turn them into rituals by bringing in intentionality. And this is going to help you with the storyline that you're working on untangling and rewriting through this self expression theme that's coming through with the three energy. Okay. So being aware of what are the things I do every day that reinforce my story, both the one I want and the one I maybe don't want, right? And just bringing in that sense of awareness, because the three energy has this sense of like quick manifestation. I often associate the three energy with the law of compound interest, meaning that little deposits add up very quickly over time and begin to compound. So the habits that you do, the practices that you do, they really matter right now. And the energy with which you do them in matters. You might even do the exact same thing, but you change your mindset or your emotional tone around it. You change the energy with which you engage in the practice. That can change everything this month, right? So, it's interesting because I've been playing with this around my home over the past little while of like looking at dishes as like a chore and like drudgery versus like, oh, like what if I imagine that as I'm cleaning my dishes, that I can infuse my home with love and gratitude? What if this is a practice of like love on my home and love on my family, and I can have more mindfulness and presence? The dishes get washed the same way, right? That does not change. However, my experience of that changes, which changes the dynamic between me and my children. It changes the dynamic between me and my home when I go into that habit with a bit more of a ritual focus, right? And you can really think about that. Because like I said, starting off in the beginning of April, we're really leaning into these bits of structures that either uphold our story or allow our story to crack open a little bit and show us some more opportunity and some more doorways, right? To continue with that initial analogy, the initial metaphor. Okay, there's also going to be some karmic clearing unfolding over the month of April. And I think this is going to be one of those things where, there's little synchronicities that are going to start bubbling up. Okay. And again, I'm going to remind you over and over again, it's not so much the physical actions that matter, it's the energetics at play. And some energetics you don't get to control, right? Some energetics, they are outside of your control. They belong in the hands and the hearts of other people, universal patterns, whatever. But you do get to be responsible for the story you tell yourself around it, the narrative you tell yourself around it. And this is going to continue to circle back to self-expression, because to me, this is how you shift things. This is how you own your space, take your responsibility, is through the storylines, right? Through the storylines. Like, are you the victim of the scenario? Are you the like starving artist of the scenario? Are you the drama queen? Are you the wicked witch? Are you like, what is your story? And like, sure, we all kind of want to be like the hero of a boring story, but we also kind of don't, because we thrive on chaos and drama. Like, why do you think movies that are so dramatic and storylines that are so dramatic are the ones that are like the best sellers and the box office hits and all that? Like, we love it. We love it. And so what if you can like play with that with a little bit of lightness of like, oh, here I go again, like stirring the pot in my life, creating a little chaos and drama. Like, am I like thriving on this drama a little bit? Like, okay, I see you over there, crazy self, right? I see you. I see your antics. Okay, the story I'm telling myself is, what doors do I choose to be available for me? And what are the practices that I can choose with the mindfulness and with the energetics to begin to write the story that I'm asking to create for myself, right? And this is a way that we can call back our power. So there's going to be some karmic influences at play, right? Which might feel like you don't have control. Do you have control? I don't know. That is like a philosophical question that we can all only answer for ourselves. But what you do have control over is the story you're telling yourself. That you 100% do. Okay. So everything's saved at the 11th hour, right? And then we're like, why do I have to hit rock bottom? It's like, because that's the story we've told ourselves. That's the drama we've created and we thrive off of. All right. Are we ready to dive in a little bit here? So one of the stories that wants to get worked on in this month is our relationship with our intuition and in our abundance, and to recognize that we get feedback through experimentation, which means when you try something, are you attached to it being successful, quote unquote successful, or are you willing to play with like the process or the experience and attach yourself more to the process than the outcome? Because as soon as we start overly attaching ourselves to the outcome, that is when we put so much pressure on ourselves that we dip into like a fight or flight mode, a freeze mode, a struggle mode, a burdensome mode, versus like, can I not just like playfully and curiously explore? Who cares what happens? That what happens is a side effect. Like, that's fine. I don't need to know that. It's not my full responsibility. It's a co-creation. But what I am responsible for is my energetic input. What I am responsible for is how I show up with my mind, with my heart, with my physical body, with my actions, with my spirit. That's what I'm responsible for. So let me experiment. What happens when I tell my story and let myself play out the drama? What happens when I tell myself a different story and I try something else instead? What happens when I and let yourself look at this month as a bit of an experimentation process. This has been coming up a lot lately, this theme of experimenting. I believe it was last month I talked about on a certain day, the rules are being rewritten by those willing to experiment. And I do feel that that started last month, but it's going to continue to carry forth. And why do I say that? Because this to me is part of the transition between 2023, the 7 energy, and 2024 of the 8, Okay. So in 2023, we received all these like insights, this connection with spirit, these downloads. We were in like the dark, in the unknown, in the chrysalis. There was just like so much happening that we, many of us just didn't even know, right? Like didn't even know in the chrysalis. And so if you can imagine the transition to the 8 of like, devotion, commitment, mastery, dedication, like really being willing to go deep and walk that line, despite potential challenges, despite whatever else is being thrown your way, it through a felt sense, right? A felt sense in your body and in your heart. So what that means to me is you're going to walk a couple steps. Like you imagine coming out of this chrysalis, like stretching your arms, stretching your wings, and like maybe you still like can't really see, but you can kind of like feel. You're going to take a couple steps and you're like, oh, that's a wobbly branch. Like, okay, back up a bit, take a couple steps, stretch my wings a bit more. Oh, I feel like I can sort of feel how to use these things. Let me try flapping them. I'm going somewhere. No, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, let me just like take a step back again. And so there is this feeling of like experimenting, or what can also feel like a couple steps forward and a step back. And we want the journey to be linear, don't we? We want the journey to be linear. It's not. Could it be? I don't know. But in my experience, I've not yet to discover a linear journey. I've more discovered the journey of a couple step forward and maybe a step back. The step back is like that integration, right? The step back is like the let me center, let me ground, let me find my footing, let me gather my strength, and let me try again, right? If I tell myself the story that my step back equals my failure or my undoing or my screw up or whatever, that's a hard pill to swallow. Whereas if I tell myself my step back is like me gathering myself, me grounding myself, me recalibrating a little bit and preparing for my next step forward, right? And so I think this is so powerful of, again, like I feel like I'm a broken record, but the story I'm telling myself, nobody knows. There is not some like, I mean, I guess depending on your beliefs, but I do not believe there is not some like great narrator in the sky who sees all, knows all, does all, whatever, and is like, you messed up there. Shouldn't have done that. Whatever. Like nobody knows. Nobody knows. So because no one knows, because no one has the answer, we are all just figuring it out. And the people who look like they have the confidence and they have it all sorted out are the ones who are telling themselves the narrative that it's fine. I'll figure it out. Oh, setback happened. That's fine. I'll just like integrate for a minute and recover and recalibrate, and then I'll take another step forward. It's fine. It's not a disaster. Sky is not falling. The world is not coming to an end. Yeah, the leaps forward and then the punch in the gut. It's exactly right, James. And it's like, well, it makes me think of the conversation around fear and excitement, right? And that fear and excitement are the same feeling in our body combined with a particular story, right? Like the butterflies, the sweats, the this, the that. It's the same feeling in your body combined with a storyline. So what do you have control over? Like play with that. And what happens if I try one story one day and then a different story the other day? And like, let me just like pretend this is my hypothesis in a science lab and see what happens. Okay, I'm like, oh, I'm talking a lot about this energy. I hope you guys are getting what you need from this. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But I'm feeling like maybe now I'm gonna go into some of the specific dates. I'm just taking a peek at my notes here. I always have the calendar in front of me mapped out with all the energies so I can feel what's coming up. One of the things that is also going to be a very big theme this month, which goes into experimentation, is creativity. And so many of us think creativity means you have to be like good at painting or good at drawing or good at singing, and it's not it at all. Creativity is being willing to experiment, being willing to try a different path, being willing to, do things the way that other people have told you, and then also do things a different way and see what comes of it. See what happens, see what comes of it, right? Being creative means to find your own path in my mind. I don't know what the actual definition of creativity is, although maybe it'd be fun to look that up, right? But just get really, really curious about being allowing yourself to be pulled in multiple different directions. If you believe your creativity comes from spirit, comes from your guides, comes from source energy, then like let them inspire you and let them pull you through excitement, through desire, through anticipation, through like, ooh, this could be fun, or ooh, this could be playful, or ooh, like this might be a fun little experiment. Let yourself be pulled in that direction. The shadow trait of this is going to be falling into worry, anxiety, and overthinking. Okay. Particularly with the fast paced energy of the three, if you hook into an unhelpful belief or an unhelpful thought, you're going to spiral. Okay. So, right now, what I would encourage you to do is jot down on your piece of paper, what are my spiral interrupts? Okay. Do you know what those are already? I know for me, my big spiral interrupts: going outside, getting in nature, going for a walk, hugging a tree. Yes, I am that crazy lady in the park that talks to the trees and hugs them. And that is one of my favorite spiral interrupts, right? That only needs 10 minutes of my time. What's another spiral interrupt? Going and booking a session with someone, getting either a healing session, a coaching session, and a reading, whatever that is, having a cup of coffee with a really close friend and having that heart to heart, right? But like, give yourself opportunities to have spiral interrupts this month so that you don't get hooked in and carried away in the current of overthinking, worry, and anxiety. All right. So pop in the chat some of yours so we can all brainstorm on ideas and borrow each other's thoughts. Because it's such a creative energy month, I think leaning into art might be a fun pattern interrupt, spiral interrupt this month. Drawing, doodling, painting, dancing, singing, right? Singing is a great one because it's such a play of self-expression that we talked about, our fullest self-expression, as well as playing with creative energies. Okay, so let's look a little bit more here at where we're going to go. Yes, I love coloring too. I love it so much. This is one of the things I love so much about my kids is it's such a reminder to go back to those like childhood joys. I'm like, right, we can sit down and color together. We played with some watercolors last month, watercolor painting, and it was so fun and just fun to kind of get messy. And it's like so good for that inner child, right? Okay. On the 7th of April, we are going to be, well, basically the entire first week of April, right? So starting on the 1st all the way until the 7th, we are going to be really ramping in with our spiritual connection. Okay. Whatever that means to you. So if you have certain desires around your spirituality, or you are honing it, you are working with it, you want to develop more of an intimacy with it, that first week in April, give yourself time and space for your spiritual practices, particularly on as you ramp into like dose yourself. Okay. Don't just be like, I'm not doing anything and then I'm going all in on the 7th. Dose yourself throughout the week. And then on the 7th, which is a Sunday, so for many of us, this is perfect. This is a day where you will be able to open a new manifestation cycle, leaning into your magic. This might mean big transformation. This might mean leaning into your soul gifts. For those of you who are very intuitive, your intuition is going to be on fire, on fire. Okay, so meditate, journal, do your energy work, whatever that is for you. Pull out your cards, get some numbers and run some numbers, like whatever it is to open that up for you. Really let yourself dive into that on the 7th. And I think this is really cool the way the numerology lies, because that's the day before the solar eclipse portal, right? The solar eclipse portal is going to be on the 8th, which also happens to land on a new moon. And it also, so to me, the new moon is going to be opening new beginnings, right? With the numerology the day before, starting a new manifestation cycle. So new manifestation cycle beginning on the 7th, new moon beginning on the 8th, supercharged with intuition and financial leadership. Okay. So there's a few trends I can see coming up around the 7th and the 8th. Number one, lean into your intuition. Okay. Lean into your intuition. Recognize that whatever is going on in the outer world, the only world that you get a say in is what's happening within you. That's the only world you get to say it. So go inwards, do your thing. Obviously, like if you want to be part of circles where you're healing together, connecting together, meditating together, celebrating together, like please do that, because so much of what intuition thrives on is connection with yourself and with source and with your guides first and foremost, but then also connection with your community and your circle, right? So important. I will say that just because of what I see in the numbers, I think that I'm not one to typically predict external happenings. That's not typically my jam. But one of the things that's coming up for me big time is the idea of potential financial control or financial corruption being revealed in the external world. And I'm really seeing this coming up as the underbelly being revealed to be healed. And so our responsibility when you notice things in the outer world that you don't like is like, okay, where am I going to focus my energy on? Where have I maybe, like, it doesn't have to be to the same scale, but if I'm seeing financial corruption in the world that I don't like, where has my relationship with money been dishonest, right? Like maybe I'm not giving money the attention I would like to, or the appreciation I would like to, or maybe I am like not paying my bills, or maybe I am not I'm fooling myself in some degree around money, right? And so being willing to be like, okay, I'm gonna bring myself back to center, right? I'm gonna bring myself back to center, and in my center, I'm gonna do my work. So seek out those people who can support you, who can hold your hand, who will be in community with you, and going into your intuitive center, I think is going to be so, so, so important. And recognizing that because of this combination of to intuition and a new manifestation cycle and this financial leadership, this is a great time for you to like activate, right? What's a financial goal that you've had on your heart and mind that you feel called to activate? Like, use that energy to move that forward. That is so exciting, so empowering. So if there's a goal you've been working on for a while, that's great. Take some small action on that day. Maybe even like some kind of ritual type action on that day. But it can even be as simple as like, oh, I'm just going to like double check my bank account and thank it and be like, thanks, money. I'm proud of you. I love you. You are killing it. I am so great to be in this partnership with you. Thanks, money. Right? Maybe it's reaching out to your financial advisor and sending them a little note and being like, yeah, like, thank you for advising me. I feel like together we are a power team. Appreciate your leadership. Thank you. Right? And so, or do your taxes, right? I don't know if you want to spend the eclipse portal doing your taxes. That's not really what I want to do on the eclipse portal, but taking a peek at things might be a great idea. Okay. Lots of information about the eclipse. Ooh, sorry, one other thread just popped in around that. And that is, does money bully you or boss you around? A question I just want to like leave as like a little seed to consider. Does money bully you or boss you around? Okay. Money does not want to boss you around. Money does not want to play the bad guy. So if there's any storylines, the story I'm telling myself is coming up around money. She holds me hostage. I freaking love it. I'm like, if money is like a bit of a like sadomasochist in your world, or punitive, or a torturer, start to play with this a little bit. Start to have fun with this a little bit. And like, maybe you're not going to instantly turn into this like power couple with money, but maybe you can be like, okay, money, I see your like sexy dominant side here. All right, like, let's play this game for a minute with lightness and like fun versus like, oh my God, I'm being tortured by money, right? So letting ourselves be, I think one of the biggest themes right now is this like lighten up vibe. Like, how do we just like, we're going through some stuff. Okay. We are going through some stuff. You're not making that up. So like go through it with like the burden and the weight of the world on your shoulders, or bring in some playful lightness and some like jokingness about it, right? And like just kind of soften the edges a little bit and not take it all or life a little too seriously. All right, so where would I like to go next? I would like to go next to the 15th of the month. And the 15th of the month is, it's interesting because I just asked about your money bullying you or your money wanting to be in a sadomasochist relationship with you. Because on the 15th of the month, we are ready to be rewriting stories. We are ready to be dropping narratives that no longer serve. We are ready to bless and release what we are done with. And maybe the story of, finances or money that felt uncomfortable and painful served you for a while, right? Many of us grow through pain. We grow through challenge, right? We become stronger for the shit that's been thrown our way. But maybe some of those storylines, like you're done with them. They served you for a time. And maybe around the 15th of the month, it's time to invite in something more loving, something gentler, something kinder, something sweeter, something more earthy, something more grounded. Okay. So there is this feeling of like these karmic ties around money, wanting to be unbound, right? These storylines wanting to be cleansed and detoxed and released. So you could literally do an unbinding spell around stories and conversations you have around money. And for those of you who that might not be a thing you're familiar with, there's a couple ways you can play with this. You can just literally write it on a piece of paper, light it on fire and burn it, and watch the smoke carrying that away and transmuting it into a new energy, right? You can also, if you want to really think about the binding energy that money has tied you up in the past, is write everything on a piece of paper, get a piece of kitchen twine and tie it up, wrap it up, right? Like it's binding you up, and then burn that. Right. And that will also be like an unbinding spell around these messages that are ready to be transmuted. Like maybe it was a fun game to play for a while, but maybe by the time the 15th rolls around, money is kind of over it. And it's like, okay, like I want a new game now. Like, okay, that was a fun game for a minute. It's like when you're kids and you're like, oh, we played dress up for the morning. Okay, now I want to play locks, right? It's like, okay, like fun game, but like let's clean that one up and let's start a new one. Yes. Which is really powerful because then on the 16th, again, a new manifestation cycle. So a new manifestation cycle beginning where money wants to access a higher level of freedom and lightness for you. Okay. On the 16th. So higher levels of freedom and lightness and a new manifestation cycle starting on the 15th of the month. Oh my gosh, Adrian, your house closes on the 15th of the month. That to me feels like such a beautiful combination of energies to close on a new home. I love that. How beautiful. Okay. Where do I want to go next? I think next I want to talk about the 21st of the month. And the 21st of the month, there is going to be a very strong window of downloads of wisdom available to you. So whether it's doing a reading for yourself, going into meditation, or, hiring or getting someone to share a reading with you, whether you do your own readings or you can open the Akashic records. But there's a window there where wisdom and ideas want to download and be received to you to create more empowerment in your ideas, to recognize that you have incredibly potent wisdom and ideas to share, that you are a thought leader. And so there's this energy that wants to ebb and flow with you so that you can recognize yourself as a thought leader, that your ideas need to be said, they need to be shared. And remember, this is a month of full self-expression. So tell somebody, talk it through with somebody, journal about it, start a Substack, start a blog, start a video YouTube channel, make a reel on it, tell a bestie, journal in your own little thing, start to write your own story, start to write it down in a book, whatever that looks like. So the 21st, leaving time for that. The 23rd comes back to that experimentation energy again. And the message I really want to tell you about the 23rd of the month is that thing that you have put kind of like in front of you or on a pedestal, the thing you want, but you haven't given yourself permission to have, whether it's like lack of worth or lack of deserving. I'm not good enough. I'm not practiced enough. I'm not skilled enough. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving of it. Whatever it is, you are strong enough to have it. It's absolutely yours. All it's waiting for you to do is assert that you are strong enough. You are capable. You were born for this. You were literally born for this. Part of this is part of your destiny, right? And so giving yourself permission that you might not have 10 out of 10 confidence all the time. No one does. Like, let me let you in on a little secret. That's literally not the way it works. Nobody has 10 out of 10 confidence all the time. Their confidence ebbs and flows, right? Which means confidence is not a reliable indicator if you're using your confidence to judge, like, am I good enough? Confidence is not a reliable indicator of quote unquote being good enough. Okay. The desire, the wanting, the energetic investment, the time investment, those are much more reliable indicators. Okay. The consistency of how you've shown up for yourself, that's a more reliable indicator than your confidence. So remind yourself that the thing you want, the thing that's in front of you, you are strong enough to have it. The only person who can give it to you is you. The thing you want, the only person who can give it to you is you. Okay. So really letting yourself claim that on the 23rd of the month and let it be a playful experiment. So like, if I can give myself the thing that I want, let me experiment. Let me try. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? What happens if I try it this way? What happens if I try it that way? And see, let yourself see what happens. Okay. Where are we going next, guys? How is this all landing? If anybody has any questions about any particular dates, feel free to drop them in the chat, or if you're catching me on the replay, you can always send me a note. If you're catching me on the podcast, send me a little DM on Instagram. But recognize that as we wrap the month up, we're really being asked to establish new ways of communicating. And again, I think this really comes back to the way we communicate with ourselves and the way we communicate with our highest self. And like this, back to that thread of the story I'm telling myself is, and being willing to treat that with a general sense of lightness so we can actually start to pick your story. Because what wants to be coming in on the 30th is, what are the steps, the habits, the practices that you do that write your story? Okay. Now let's use this analogy of writing a story for a minute. So if you have a story to tell, it exists, right? The story exists as like an energetic bubble, right? It has its own consciousness to it. It's a bubble that literally exists, but it's not written yet. Okay. And the only way it gets written is word by word, sentence by sentence, page by page. So again, the story I'm telling myself is, choose the one you want. And then ask yourself, like, what is the word by word process that I write this story? What is the little thing I do? The little action step every day. How do I care for myself? What are the habits? What are the thoughts I think? What are the things I do that build this book word by word? Okay. So that is kind of the wrap up thought of April. Yay! Rosalie's birthday is at the end, the 28th. That's so beautiful. I love that for you. It's going to be a really beautiful day, actually. Yeah. So to summarize all of this, I think the key themes that are really coming through this month are self-expression and creativity. The story I'm selling myself is thinking about the word creativity and the root of it as create or creator, to be a creator, to create your own reality, to create your own experiences. And how are you writing those stories, right? Like, what are the word by word processes that you're writing those stories? And to recognize that a lot of which wants to be rewritten in the month of April is the stories and the interactions we have with money and with abundance, and the ways that those experiences have kept us trapped or held hostage, and the ways that we want to be freed and opened and expanded in those storylines. So thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing from you how it lands, what your questions are, what your comments are. And yeah, I hope that you have an incredible, incredible month. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Sending you so much love. Mwah. Bye, everyone.